Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Lauren Anthony, and I just wanted to give you a review of the past several days. I've been in Universal Orlando. So this is a major theme park here in Orlando, Florida. We are in the midst of a pandemic, coronavirus or COVID-19. So right now the park's just reopened several weeks ago, and I wanted to give you guys a review on my experience during this pandemic and what it was like to be in a theme park, especially the ones here in Orlando, Florida, specifically Universal, because Universal is the first theme parks to open. There's also Disney and SeaWorld and some other theme parks here locally in Orlando, Florida, but Universal was the first one to open up. Universal consists of 3 different theme parks. They have the Volcano Bay, which is the water theme park. They also have Islands of Adventure, which has a lot of rides. It's based off of different movies. Some you might recognize would be Spider-Man. They have a comic section. So they have a Spider-Man ride that is interactive. It's kind of a 3D, virtual tour, virtual ride, which is really cool. If you have motion sickness, these rides here at Universal are probably not gonna be the best for you. I tend to be prone to motion sickness, so coming from someone who gets sick easy from a lot of shaking of the brain, of the head, they will maybe cause you to be sick, so make sure that you come prepared and you take motion sickness medicine, or just keep that in mind if you're going to do these rides, because we had a really good time. But that's just something I want to mention because that's something I experienced. I love the rides, I love the thrill, I love the adventure, but I don't like feeling like nauseous. And the reason I mentioned that was because I mentioned Spider-Man was a virtual experience, and that was a ride that I did get a little motion sickness on, and that's one of the lighter ones, one of the easier ones that doesn't give you motion sickness. So you can imagine there were other ones. There was the Harry Potter world that was also one of those motion sickness prone rides. That was the #1 ride that people get motion sickness on, is what we were told, because it is one of those virtual rides that you basically sit in a chair and the chair moves you around fast, quick. You're doing dips, and you're also looking at a 3D screen. I think it was 5D actually, but it's 5D screen. You know, it's coming at you, so you really feel like you're falling off of buildings, and you're very interactive with what's actually going on, and you feel like you're a part of the story. So that was my experience as far as the motion sickness goes. If you're prone to that, make sure you come prepared. They say to eat something light before you go to the parks. So I actually ate some pasta because I didn't want to get hungry. I wanted to spend as much time as I could on all the rides and maximize everything, which we were able to. We did all of the rides at Islands of Adventure, and that's the first one I'm going to talk about, is Islands of Adventure. They also have Orlando Universal Studios. That's the main theme park. It has also a bunch of rides that are in relative to a lot of the movies and shows that Universal has done. So the first theme park I'm going to talk about today, though, is Universal Islands of Adventure, because that's the one we just did yesterday. And yeah, they have the Spider-Man, they have the Hulk ride, which is the roller coaster ride, which is very intense. Again, if you have motion sickness, probably not the best ride. Most of the rides they warn, if you're pregnant or motion sickness or have any kind of recent surgeries, or you have back problems or neck problems, you probably want to stay off of these rides. If you do have motion sickness, not extreme like me, you want to take specific measures, maybe eat something light. Like I said, I ate pasta, which is probably too heavy. So then I realized you got to eat something light, like crackers. If you get hungry, you can eat in the park. They have tons of restaurants inside the park. They have tons of little food stands and drink stands, so you can grab something quick and easy. I think that's the best way to go from personal experience. But everything was open. This is about how our experience was during the pandemic. So I wanted to give you a little bit of information about the park itself, some of the rides, but mostly I want to focus on the experience we had during the pandemic. I have been to Universal many times before. I have been to this theme park specifically multiple times. I'm from Florida. I've lived in Orlando before. I grew up in South Florida, so it's very close to home for me. I've gone basically my whole life since I was a little girl. So I have experienced it before the pandemic and during the pandemic now. And I must say, I enjoyed it a lot during this pandemic. As crazy as that sounds to say, I had a really good experience. The lines were very short. You have to take in account that also there are not a lot of international travelers right now. We have banned certain countries from entering into the United States, such as China or some European countries. And because of that, I think there is a lot less international travelers, which makes a big difference. A lot of people from all over the world come to Orlando to visit these different theme parks, including the 3 Universal theme parks. So I think that made a big difference. There was a lot less people than when I've gone before in previous years, before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I would be waiting in lines, a lot of lines for an hour or more at times. Usually it was about an hour wait time for all the different rides previously. I would say during this pandemic, we were able to do all the rides. We got there from as soon as they opened at 9 a.m. and we left exactly when they closed at 6 p.m. And we were able to do every single ride at least once, even with a few minutes to spare to just kind of relax and hang out. But we didn't spend hours or take a long time stopping to eat or anything. So take that in mind. They have a Starbucks in there. You can get coffee. They have a bunch of restaurants you can sit down and eat if you want to have a bite, but that does take up more time. But considering 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., not really stopping, going easy at an easy pace, easy going, not feeling rushed, we were able to do every single ride. So that was really cool, and I've never experienced that before. Every time I've gone to any theme park here in Orlando, we have always never been able to finish the entire park because you're waiting in at least average, I would say, an hour-long line just to get into one ride. And the rides usually last about, I would say, 4 to 7 minutes is the average. I would say 5 would be completely average across the board for all the rides. So think about it. You're waiting an hour to do a 5-minute ride, which the ride's cool. It's totally worth it. But during this pandemic, I actually really liked the fact that I didn't have to wait in line. I mean, the longest line we had was, I think, 10 minutes. And that was one ride. I mean, out of all the rides. So we were pretty much got in and out very, very quickly, very easily. They were very good about making sure people were practicing social distancing. They had markers all along the ride. So whenever you got in the line, because there was still a line, a pathway to enter to get onto the ride, they did have blue markers with white lettering every 6 feet or 2 meters, which said this is please practice social distancing. And you were supposed to stand on those lines. Of course, not everybody does it. Sometimes you have to remind your neighbor because people are excited, people are talking. That's fine, we're human. But they also had, over the PA system, they did have recordings, or even the person, I don't know where they were, maybe the person at the front checking the tickets, or somebody was saying, please practice your social distancing, make sure you're staying 6 feet apart. So that was good. So between having the markers, so you knew where 6 feet were, and it was asking you, kind of reminding you to keep that distance, on top of the PA system, the announcements reminding you, and then also you had the live person reminding you. So they were doing a really good job with that. And then on a lot of the rides, not all of them, but I would say maybe the 80% of them, when you got to the top of the ride, they did have hand sanitizer. So there was somebody there, an employee, giving hand sanitizer, pumping in everybody's hands. So that's really good also, making sure that whatever you're touching and then the next person goes, they've been sanitized. So for the most part, it was really good. Also, you are required to wear a face mask. We wore face masks the entire time. If you take it off for a second to breathe, which I did, there are people walking around that have a lot of employees reminding you kindly, hey, please put your face mask on, please cover it. Even if people had it, just their nose showing, please keep it up all the way over your nose, cover your nose and your mouth. So they did have people reminding you constantly if for some reason you wanted to take it off. They do have designated areas within the park that you can go and take your mask off if you want to breathe, if you want to eat, if you want to drink. I did see people throughout the park taking their masks off, just stopping on the side, finding a place to sit, and like on a bench or something like that. And they were taking off their masks to eat and drink, which is fine. You're not supposed to do that, but I guess if you're staying your 6 feet distance or 2 meters, you just have to be aware, and you need to do it for yourself because not everybody follows the rules. Most people in general were, but there were, of course, a few people that weren't. And you just need to do your diligence, and you need to make sure that you're following the rules, staying 6 feet from people, keeping your mask on, and the hand sanitizing, which they provided. I brought hand sanitizer with me in my bag just because I'd rather have it in case I need it for any moment. But at the beginning of the ride, before you get on the ride, most of the rides, not all, but most were providing hand sanitizer, and they make you. I mean, they were, as you entered, you had to put the hand sanitizer and make sure you were sanitizing. So that was really good. But I would say, as an overall, I really enjoyed the park during the pandemic. It was a breath of fresh air. I've been stressed out. I know most of us have been during this pandemic. It has affected everybody around the world in some way or form, and that's universal. No point intended, but universally in the world, globally, everybody's been affected. So if you are currently in the US, I know a lot of people can't come right now to Universal or Orlando because of travel restrictions, but this is for my Americans more so. If you're in the United States and you're looking for a vacation, I think maybe flying is not the best thing to do right now, but if you can drive if you can drive to Orlando, most of everything is open here in Orlando right now. Most restaurants are open. They're operating fully from what I saw. We went to a few restaurants. We did the murder dinner show, and that was completely full. But again, it was the same thing. Like, you have to wear your mask. They were giving hand sanitizer. So that seems to be the general vibe here in Orlando, is everything is operating as normal, I would say. I even heard clubs were open 50%. I don't know. I didn't go to any clubs, but that's pretty crazy. I don't know all the details on that, so I'm not going to talk about it. But that's what I was told by somebody working in a restaurant. So yeah, basically Orlando in general has really good vibes right now. Being in the midst of a pandemic, I was stressed out, worried, confused. What's going to happen? A lot of thinking. Too much probably, and I needed a break. I needed to get away. I needed to kind of put down my phone and get away from all the craziness and the news and everything going on in the world. So I would say that it's a really good time to come here if you are willing to, follow the rules, the social distancing, practicing those safety measures, but you also want to have a vacation. You need to get away from the news and all the craziness going on in the world right now, which I also think is important right now. It came to a point where it's like mental health is also very important. So I think if you are being safe, you're using hand sanitizer, you're constantly washing your hands with soap and water, and you are staying your 6 feet or 2 meters away from people, doing the social distancing, I think that it's good for mental health. I have had an amazing time. I've enjoyed this past week in Orlando. We still have 1 week more, but I've enjoyed a lot this week. I've enjoyed a lot the theme parks. I think that it was operating, I don't know the exact percentage that the theme parks were operating at capacity-wise, but it's definitely not full. You feel like you're basically in the park with a group of people, like another group of people, maybe a couple groups, but definitely nowhere near to what it usually is like. So you don't have, and a lot of international travelers aren't here. You also have Americans. I would say it's mostly Americans in the parks. But even then, a lot of people are staying home. A lot of people are not traveling right now. And that's because, which makes sense. People are scared. People are nervous. People maybe out of work, don't have the money. So there's a lot of reasons why there are not a lot of people here. And I totally get that. Makes sense. I personally needed it for my mental health. I'm a traveler. I'm always on the go. So just being stuck in one place with not a lot to do is not a healthy thing for me, I would say, at this point. So I needed to come here. I wanted to have fun. I needed to, like I said, put down my phone, get away from the news and all the chaos going on in the world. And I'm feeling healthy. I haven't had any problems or any issues. I've just been focusing on having a good time, but also being safe, which is very important. So overall, the takeaway you can get from this is Universal Islands of Adventure, I would say, is 100% safe right now. It's a go. I was impressed with their safety measures, the social distancing, the markers they have on the floor, the necessity of wearing face masks for all guests. As soon as you walk into the Universal City Walk, if you've ever been here before or if you haven't, they have an area where you park. It's called Universal City Walk, and then you kind of walk in. Even before you reach the Universal City Walk, they are checking temperatures. So they have a little machine. They're checking your temperature, making sure you don't have a temperature. If you do, you will be turned away. You cannot go in. You have to have a face mask on. If you have your face mask on, you can enter. If you do not have one or do not have it on, they will not let you in. So I felt very safe with that too. The temperature checks, mandatory for everybody. The face mask, mandatory. And if you decide to take it off or someone else does, they do have a lot of employees everywhere reminding you kindly to put it back on. They're doing hand sanitizer all around the theme park before you get on any rides. And they are also making sure that they're skipping every other seating. So for example, you go on a ride, they're not cramming as many people as they can onto one ride. They're actually doing social distancing as well on the ride. So you weren't next to people. Some of the rides, they would just give you your own cart or your own boat or your own, whatever the ride was. They were literally only putting your group on that specific go on the ride. So I really like that too. I didn't feel like I was not close to anybody other than Christian, which is my partner that we went together, the two of us. So we basically felt like we had everything to ourselves, which was really good. And if some of the rides, they did put more than one group on the specific ride, they made sure that there was a row in between us. So we were doing social distancing even on the rides, which was really cool. I think they did an excellent job. I would give them a 10 out of 10, really. And the employees were very diligent about it. And I would say it's a good place to come if you're looking to get away, if you need a vacation, you need that mental break. It's really fun. There's literally hardly any lines. You feel like you have the park to yourself with a few other people. So definitely I recommend coming here if you're able to. And that's my review. If you have any other questions or anything that you want me to clarify or something I did not mention, make sure you drop me a comment below and I will answer you as soon as possible, and I can tell you a little more about the experience if there's any other questions that you have. Thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already to this channel. We cover so many things. We're going to continue to travel as much as we can and practice the safety measures until this coronavirus is contained and we have a solution for it. But until then, we have a ton more coming up that we are going to be posting. We've been traveling for the past 3 years, recording for you guys and going to be posting those videos here on this YouTube channel. I have been traveling for over 12 years myself and have been to over 79 countries now and counting. I'm not stopping, so I have a lot of information that I would be happy and love to share with you guys, and I love making these vlogs and these videos for you guys. So make sure you subscribe if you already haven't. If you have, happy to have you here, of course. I always love hearing your comments and what you have to say about our videos, so I appreciate it. And always the positive feedback is very nice and uplifting, which we all need more of that right now in the world. So thank you to you guys. You know who you are. And make sure you say hi. If you haven't, drop me a comment. If you have any questions, I'm here for you. Hope you enjoyed, and hopefully we will see you soon somewhere around the world.